Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Hello and welcome to Centre Stage, the South African theatre and film podcast. I'm your host, Peter Bates, and as always, I'm joined by
Alistair King and Daniels.
And today, I just want to let you know, audience, that Blended Podcasts is the network of which Centre Stage is a part. Please do us a solid and follow Blended Podcasts on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. We're also on iTunes now. Give us a like, give us a favorite, subscribe to us. It really helps us out and it spreads the word about our great podcast. So, Alistair, today we're going to be talking about awards. We're talking about the Oscars. Or the Academy Awards.
The Academy Awards.
Yes, the Motion Picture Association of Arts and Sciences or something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to be delving into, are they as important as everyone
Oscars
seems to think?
Awards in general.
Awards in general,
Okay,
I think.
okay.
Because you get a lot of actors, I'm speaking as an actor, you get a lot of actors who do a really great job, but they're never recognized by any awards at all. So it's just, there's this idea that you've got to aspire to get an award.
To get the award. And it's like,
And the
this
Oscar is
the
the
award.
highest.
It's the one you can get, and then you're amazing.
And
right?
then you're a good actor, but you can be a good actor without it. So, but we're also going to get into some of the nuance because I'm in two minds about this. I think Oscars and awards are very helpful.
Yeah.
But also, at the same time, almost a bit convoluted. I don't know. What do you feel?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, when you're thinking of awards and people think, when people think of movies, they think of Hollywood, okay, which is in
True.
Los Angeles, United States, okay? So when people think of movies, they think of Hollywood. So when people think of movie awards, they think of the Oscars, and it's huge, okay? It's like a global phenomenon. And, we've talked about it before, about how other movie industries and other film industries in other places kind of imitate and ape the Hollywood system and all that kind of thing. So it's always good to question the existing system. It's always good to say, okay, what does this actually mean? Is it actually worthwhile? Should we be paying attention to it? And just straight out of the bat, I think the Oscars are a great thing. Or the Academy Awards. Do you know actually why they're called the Oscars?
Why?
Because I'm not sure how true the story is, but
Please fact check us.
yeah, please fact check us. But it was something along the lines of when the statue was cast, somebody made a comment, "Oh, that looks like my Uncle Oscar." And now the awards are called the Oscars. So I don't know if that's true. Maybe if I keep saying it, it will become true. But isn't that interesting? Because that's actually how they operate.
That's sort of
well.
what the Oscars are and awards.
If we say it's important because we say it's important, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Precisely. So the Oscars are actually a very, they're super exclusive. So to be eligible, you have to meet certain criteria. The film must be over 40 minutes in length. It must be publicly screened for paid admission in Los Angeles County, and must be screened for a minimum amount of time as well. So it has to actually fit those criteria. It can't just be any movie. It has to be in a public cinema for a paying audience. I think it's for at least 2 weeks, and it has to be longer than 40 minutes in length. There's a couple of other...
Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles County, yes.
So it's interesting because you just talked about the Oscars being this global thing where everyone's talking about it, everyone watches it. Internationally recognized.
But only open to an exclusive few.
Exactly, and isn't that problematic?
Well, you think this is the thing. People say, oh, the Oscars are the best actor category is awarded to the best actor. Well, it's awarded to the best actor who was in a movie which was eligible to be chosen.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is the issue I have. That's the part of you're the best actor, but out of what? For what criteria?
Yeah, okay, so that's the thing. So what's the judging criteria? Okay, so Leonardo DiCaprio recently, 2 years ago, I think, got an Oscar for his role in The Revenant. And that was serious hardcore method acting. He starved himself and crawled out of the ocean and across a beach and walk 2 miles upwards in the snow both ways. Uphill in the snow both ways. You know, that kind of thing. And then everyone was like, wow, he did a great job. He acted super hard. Well, actually, he went through an ordeal. So was he awarded for being a good actor? As in, like, good actors go through ordeals and sacrifice for their roles? Or is he a good actor because he really embodied the character? And the way he embodied the character was by going through this hardcore ordeal. That's the question.
Because that also brings the question, like, what was he this character going through the ordeal, or was he Leo going through this ordeal?
Okay, well, you see, that's the thing. Okay, so now we're kind of going into we're kind of plunging to the depths. Okay?
But it's relevant because then you're giving this award for the best actor to someone who did a really interesting and amazing feat in a movie. But can you say it's better than someone who's fully invested in an actual character you can, like, if you see him as this character and you see him as himself, you see like completely different people. Like that to me is being a good actor.
Have you watched The Phantom Thread, Daniel Day-Lewis?
No.
You need to watch The Phantom Thread. It's an incredible. It's also extremely creepy. Okay, but it basically illustrates exactly what you mean, because have you seen There Will Be Blood? I mean, that man is like literally a completely different person. He just embodies the character so well. And I mean, that's why I think he's only done like a handful of films, because he's done them so exceptionally well. Yeah. Every one of them has been incredible. Or at least his acting in every one of them has been incredible.
Which is why, you just sort of like sparked something in me, which is why I have an issue with this idea of the best actor and best actress and stuff, is because I've seen so many TV series where the actor, I'm thinking of one, Orphan Black. Have you ever watched Orphan Black?
I've seen a couple of episodes. Yeah, it's decent.
She plays like good. Multiple different characters.
Yes.
And I think she's just such a great actress. I mean, she's won Emmys. Yeah. Those are the television ones. But why is it not on the same level of an Oscar best actor?
Well, okay, so you're also comparing film, which has existed for like 50 years longer than television has existed. So you've also got all that like old money. I don't know if that's even the right word to use, but it's like a lot more firmly entrenched. And you see, this is the thing. So that is what the Academy does, is that it also, I think, by being so, not necessarily exclusive. I mean, if you want to be like, there's 6,000 people on the committee, who are judging, who can judge. Okay, 6,000 people. Okay, but you have to have, if you want to be judging the acting, you have to have at least 3 film credits to your name in leading roles. You have to have this, you have to have that. If you want to be, judging for the music or for the technical aspects, you have to have worked at least 10 or 15 years in the industry and have so many hours and have so many screen credits. So it's a lot of people, but also, by making it so that only those who are at the top of their game and who embody the values of the Academy are the ones who judge the merits of others, you're kind of setting up a machine that kind of transmits that culture and protects that culture. And I don't know if television, and I mean, unfortunately, we have to talk about American television, but we'll get into the South African aspect too. I don't know if television really has a similar, or the machine is perhaps not as powerful. That machine of cultural transmission is perhaps not as powerful. Maybe because, to a certain extent as well, television, I think, is seen as a throwaway medium. I don't think it's regarded as highly as film. So I think that's maybe a part of it too, because television is transient, right? Whereas film is something that you can like have a film.
I was going to say, if going back to sort of being maybe the best actor or something in a film as compared to a TV series, I've kind of just answered myself in my head, because something we also some people don't take into account, which I didn't take into account earlier, is that when you're acting for a film and you're acting for a TV series, it's completely different. Because a film, you only have an hour and a half to convey a character, and you don't get anything more than that. Whereas when you're on a TV series, you get 12 episodes a season, and you get multiple seasons so you can kind of go more into depth. So the standards, I suppose, are different. And that goes not just acting, goes across.
Excuse me.
So the standards are different, and that goes not just with acting, but directing. Because on TV series you get like one director doing 3 episodes of the season, and you don't have the same director doing the same episode.
But what are you saying? How does it affect
series.
it though?
It's a different standard of looking at something and assessing its
merit.
Its
Yeah,
merit.
look. I mean, it is. It's like it's tempting to lump television and film into the same category, but it is very different, I think.
But that's basically what I'm saying. I just did that earlier.
Yes.
And I'm as I'm thinking the thought process is
You're kind of
going,
teasing
like
those out,
it really
yeah.
I shouldn't have done that. And a lot of people do though. So that's why I'm just explaining it for our listeners. It's for them. So we talked about Oscars. And I didn't know there were 6,000 people, which I suppose if you think about globally, it's not a lot, but it's a lot of people. It is still a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they're all professionals. But like you said, it all since they're professionals,
Yes.
it all goes up to the same. It keeps the
standard, yeah.
keeps the standard.
But then
keeps the
again,
culture.
so we're going to ask questions now. So who determines that standard? So we now look at the composition of the people who are making the decisions, right? And look at their backgrounds and their life and their experiences and where they come from and stuff like that to determine. So. And then, of course, you're also talking about like this kind of this inertia as well. So you've got this machine, and it's. I keep saying machine. Like a cold machine of cultural transmission. I know that sounds very.
People know what you mean.
It sounds very Marxist. I don't know, but anyway. So you've got this machine, and it's got a certain character, and how do you direct it? Well, to you have to be part of it to direct that path it's going. But in order to be part of it, you have to adopt it. You know, and its tenets and its requirements. Okay,
It's like you got to play the game.
Do you know how exclusive it is? If you premiere your film, let's say on the internet, or you premiere your film, let's say in a different country, it's immediately ineligible. It has.
So what
to,
are the eligibilities?
We're really having trouble with this today, aren't we? Eligibility and eligible. Not what?
Eligible.
Eligible. Not
Eligible.
illegible. Eligible. Illegible is when you write something you can't see.
Yeah. What is the eligibility standards
Oh, there's people
to be in the Oscars?
Yeah. Okay, I'll actually read them off. I've got them written down here. Okay. So, in order to submit a film for nomination, a movie's producer or distributor must sign and submit a screen credits form in December.
Okay.
That's not a list of credits. Basically, what it basically says that you fulfill these criteria. Okay. The film must be over 40 minutes in length. It must be publicly screened for paid admission in Los Angeles County with the name of the theater, a public theater. Okay. Must screen for a qualifying run of at least 7 straight days. So 7 days in a row. In addition, the film cannot have its premiere outside the theatrical run. So screening the film for the first time on TV or the internet or in a different country, it's immediately out. Then they send the ballots out and they do the voting process.
To the 6,000 people.
To the 6,000 people. And each of those people rank 5 nominees in order of preference for the award. And the thing about those 6,000 people is that they can only belong to one branch each. So you can't, for example, you can only be part of the acting branch or part of the production branch or part of the sound design branch.
You can't vote on acting.
You can't vote on something
directing.
that you haven't been admitted to the branch. And then the whole idea is that the instruction is, the Academy instructs voters to follow their hearts.
Okay.
So it's extremely subjective, but I think at the same time, because you have such a large number of people, it's also kind of like those individual biases average out, right? And you get it like a specific
average, yeah.
an average, and it's still biased, okay,
Yeah.
because you're drawing from a certain background, but it becomes a certain average, okay.
So what if these 6,000 people didn't exist and it was open like an election?
This is
maybe the 6,000
nomination.
people.
This is the nomination process.
Oh,
Then they're nominated. So then
Yeah.
it all gets sent back to a big organization and they do what they got to do. And now you have a list of nominations. And then you decide actually who wins. So it's a multi-step process. It's not just 6,000 people and
Yeah.
then that's it. Okay.
But
so you're asking about popular vote.
yeah.
So you're saying like text now on your phones 31513.
So
Text your favorite number or whatever it is.
So let the 6,000 choose who are selected.
The nominations,
the
okay.
nominations, and then put it to a popular vote.
Yeah.
Because then we'll see a more representative opinion on these films and things from the population, from the world. But then, I suppose they don't do that because it's the films have to be from, what did you say, Los Angeles?
Look, yeah, okay. So there's this great saying, which is, have you watched this? It's this conversation, imagined conversation. Have you read this new book? Everybody's reading it. It's so good. It's so good because everyone's reading it. Well, actually, everyone could just be wrong.
That's
like it could be bad, right? Like it could actually be nonsense. Okay, so that's, I don't know, that sounds a little elitist. Like I could say like, no, this is nonsense because my opinion counts more than the opinions of everyone else. But it's group consensus that makes something good or bad.
Yeah.
Okay, like the whole idea of like bad movies, like a movie that's so bad that it's actually good and everyone wants to watch it, like a cult classic or something. Like, I don't know, Day of the Triffids or something. Complete, my word, complete nonsense. Oh, it's terrible. Complete nonsense like that. And I think we're going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about that in the
exactly.
next episode.
So it's like consensus makes it good. Okay, right?
Yeah, I suppose. So are you saying 6,000? That the committee is a better idea than...
Well, they know what they're talking about as well. I mean, you're not just like going to a random person on the street and saying like, hey, what film do you like? And he's like, yeah, this one, because that's the only one he can think of at the moment, right?
But I'm coming from it. I mean, yes, but then you also get some really bougie people who are in the film industry, and they just talk complete rubbish.
Yeah, but I mean, you get that in... What do you mean? Okay, hang on. What do you mean?
Like, they might be high up. They've made so many films, but like to them, their films are really inspirational and amazing. But like to everyone else, they're like, what the hell?
But this is why you have a big group of people, so that you have outliers that are like averaged out, basically. So it's like, well, he thinks that, but everyone else doesn't, so we kind of erase that.
I suppose the take home is that it is a big group of people. I think a lot of people think that it's about like 30 people.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of like, and they all sit around and they're like, okay, who's paid us the most money this year? We'll give the award to them. Oh, good jolly old chap.
And also like
it's like an old boys club sitting around.
Yeah, a bunch of old white men sitting in a like.
But that's the thing, because it has been criticized for that before, because if you look at the makeup of like the heads of each of these departments, it's like that. It's quite like
what
straight white men, kind of, you know, that kind of thing, of a certain age and a certain background and a certain level of wealth.
So then, is it like that?
But you see, I don't want to go and say, okay, but just because you are this, your opinion doesn't count because you have a certain mindset, or because throwing things away like that is also not good. Because look, ultimately, the Academy is trying to protect. Because also the thing is, if you kind of go too wide and you say, well, everyone can have an input, then you kind of dilute the power that the award has as well. That's because true. Then it just turns into a popular vote. And I mean, look at democracy, how popular votes work, right? It's a complete... I can't say the word on this podcast, but it's bad. It's a complete mess up. So it just turns into a popular vote. And I think that, again, dilutes the power, because I think to a certain degree, people need to be told what to like.
Yeah, I can see.
People need to be told, this is good, watch this. You know, this is something that you should be looking at. This is something you should be considering. But, you know, if you look at... It's fascinating because in preparation for this, I was Googling like top 100 films to watch before you die, or top 50 films to watch before you turn 30, or you know, those kind of lists. And it's always interesting to see the lists that the list writer is an idiot. Sorry. The list writer didn't know what they were doing, and they just probably themselves Googled top 100 films and then just like plagiarized someone else's list. Okay. And then it's interesting to see the lists that are actually thoughtful and take that list of... And there's a couple of lists out there who are written by like real, you know, people who are really film critics and all, who really have a passion and a love for film and really enjoy it as a medium. And it's not just a clickbait article; it's actually well thought out. And then compare that list to the list of films that have been recognized with awards like Academy Awards, Oscars, and then also cross-reference that to the lists. And compare it to the list of the people who don't know what they were doing when they put the list together, and seeing how different and varied those lists are, and how you can, you know, there's a lot more subtlety in the good list than there is in in like the popular list, because what sticks in people's minds? Well, what sticks in people's minds is something that does something new or breaks the mold or is innovative, and we often award films and theatre and movies and everything for awards for being innovative. Okay, but there's also so much room for for exploring maybe a topic that's been done or maybe something that's been done before, but exploring it deeper. Okay, and following a theme and finding a subtlety in a theme that hasn't been explored before, which, now that I'm thinking it, is probably a form of innovation as well. So maybe my point is moot. But there's a lot to be said for that kind of subtle experience rather than just, looking at what catches the eye. And
the Oscars help sort of direct focus of the population to the films that
I don't think
are worthy to watch.
Because according to the Academy, we have
to also remember that in being nominated, a film has sort of won. Because people go watch the nominated films.
Oh, it's the nominated.
That's what I do.
Oscar nominated. Yeah, of course. I mean, it adds a certain prestige as well. Look, let's be frank. Just to be nominated is prestigious.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you get some films and then like it says Academy Award nominee.
Yes.
So and so is in this. Like, they haven't even won an award yet, but they've been nominated
for it. Which
so
is
even just like the idea of the award is,
look, it sells more tickets, right?
Yeah.
So look, I think it's fantastic for the film industry to have a body of people that recommend what films they decide which films are good, and then they recommend that to people to watch, because that encourages people to buy tickets, and who ultimately profits from that? The film industry, right?
Yeah.
So like, you can't ignore the economic perspective of it either, because that literally sells more tickets. So there's kind of that, and I think maybe I'm a little bit cynical, and I think like if it didn't make the money, they wouldn't do it. So maybe I don't know, that's maybe a bit cynical, because you're like, oh yes, art. But I also believe that there are people who really believe in the art too. I mean, ultimately they've dedicated. I mean, they've spent a lot of time in their lives, furthering the art form, or at least exploring the art form. So
and they should get recognized for it.
And they should be recognized for it, yeah. And they should give recognition to others for it as well, those who are judging. But I think it's important to remember when you're looking at any sort of award that award was made by that award was adjudicated according to a certain set of criteria. And if you want to know what that award really means, you need to look at those criteria, and you need to look at the adjudicator. And you can, I think, draw a lot of inferences from that information as well.
Yes. And I think the last one we're going to chat about is South Africa and the
South
awards.
African awards. Let's talk about theatre awards in South Africa. You know, the biggest ones are the Naledi Awards. But by the way, do you know what Naledi means? I've got it on good advice. It means shooting star or shining star.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shining Star Award.
Shining Star, yeah. So, for example, we've got the Naledi Awards in South Africa, which I think they've been going for about 15 years now, and they are like the biggest. That is like the thing. Theatre awards in South Africa.
You've also got the Fleur de Cap.
We got the Fleur de Cap, yes, as well. That's also really big, very prestigious. And again, it's like we need to manufacture prestige.
Yeah.
Okay. So now maybe that sounds a bit like the manufacturing of prestige. Look, it's important, or it's prestigious because it's being made prestigious. Okay. So, if you're good and you get recognized, you're good because you're recognized, and you're recognized because you're good. So to a certain extent, it's self-fulfilling. But I think we need to do that. We need to recognize what is good, and we need to do that publicly, because that encourages more people. People love recognition. Let's be honest. Yes. Okay. People love to be recognized. So, in recognizing more things encourages more people to do better. It's simple. It's straightforward, right? I don't think this is a very complicated argument to make. So things like the Naledi Awards are very important. But I think the person who's deciding, and the people who are deciding on these things, you've got to be conscious. They've got to be conscious of the power that they have to determine what is let into that club of good things.
Yes.
Because, look, ultimately it is a bit of prestige, okay? And you've got to be careful about what you're acknowledging.
And also, I read an article that was talking about how awards sort of shape the future of their art forms. And it's sort of just what you say. You've got to be, the curators have to be fully aware of who they're letting into this sort of prestigious club, in inverted commas, because who they let in say you get a Fluter Cap for direction. That means that the next time you do a play, you've got this trophy behind your name, this award behind your name, and people are going to take more notice of it. So, and that sort of evolves the art form in, let's say, South Africa, and it all sort of starts sort of at being recognized by these organizations.
Well, that's what you see. That's what Tara was speaking about last week when she talked about the Ovation Awards at the festival. Okay, and you know it's fascinating because at the National Arts Festival, in Makanda, and what she mentioned was because she was one of the co-conveners.
Yeah.
So what she said was that we asked her what criteria, and she said, well, it's if a play is good, which I thought was fascinating because that's kind of like, you know, it's so subjective, which is good because you know she explained we've got like so many hundreds of people who are judging, and they try and see every single play that they can, and it's interesting because it's very similar to what the Academy says, which is vote with your heart, you know, what you believe to be good. So it's like we have this idea of what is a good play or whatever the case is, and we award it based on that. And you know, for those who are specifically distinguished, they'll get a gold ovation award for those who do really, really well, and then a silver for those who are still notable, or whatever the case is. So yeah, I think it plays a very important role in encouraging people. And I mean, it's not just recognition; it's also achievement, and it's also a goal. I think it's definitely a strong motivator. People, you know, I want to go there. I want to be recognized for what I do. I think it's important, and when you are recognized, it's
nice,
it's powerful.
Yeah.
It is powerful. People love recognition. I mean, we just went back to that whole thing. Yeah.
I kind of just want to make a point about everyone when someone, like going back to the Oscars or maybe a big award ceremony like the Naledi Awards or the SAFAs in South Africa, people often, if their show that they were rooting for doesn't get it, they go, but you know, it's all subjective anyway. And it's interesting to note that in the criteria for, like you were just saying, ovations and Oscars, you know, vote with your heart, they're sort of admitting that yes, it is sort of subjective.
It is subjective.
But it's a subjective view of a big group of people.
Oh, and then that averages out.
Which sort of averages out, but they go like, yeah, it is subjective. So people going, it's all subjective, is kind of like a non-point. Like they know that, they've admitted that. It's just sort of interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the Naledi Awards that have been recently. It's just the process actually. And this article that I've got here, I don't know. It's I'm just going to quote a line. Every year, South African theatre practitioners churn out about 100 plays.
I'm about 99 short.
I'm pretty no, not each, as in total, no man. Churn out about 100 plays. I think that is perhaps off by a factor of at least 100 or maybe even 1,000. I don't know, maybe not as much as 1,000. As head of the Naledi Awards, Lindbergh's job is to ensure that Naledi Award judges attend productions that are relevant to their field of expertise to streamline the process of selecting nominees.
But productions in what sense? Like productions in the sense of like when we do a production, or like a big budget production is what they're talking about?
Yeah. Well, this is the other thing. Look, the Naledi Awards is really about looking for those who are, you know, it's focusing on the upliftment and empowerment aspect of things. Okay, and I mean that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
And that's what the awards are for, and that's why awards are powerful, because, you know, it's like having this exclusive thing that's only given to people who are really good, acknowledging more people as good who are not necessarily like mainstream to what is considered good, and like kind of expanding that and accepting more. You know, it's people say, well, that dilutes the power of the award, which is actually what I said earlier, as an example, not that I said it. People said that dilutes the power of the award. Really, does it, or does it just expand the scope of what is good? You know, and I think, you know, especially stuff like the Naledi Awards are extremely important because it's focused on South Africa, the South African context, you know, and awarding people for being good in our context. And it was actually very disappointing to see, obviously this kind of stuff requires funding. I mean, everything requires money. And it
Yeah.
was very disappointing to see how difficult it has been for the Naledi Awards to secure funding. The Ministry of Arts and Culture is basically non-functional in South Africa. And I mean, even if you look at stuff like sport, the people who are representing South Africa in international sports have to like basically scrimp and save and scrounge, and we've got so much talent that's going underappreciated because there is no funding.
There's
you
no
have to do it
funding.
yourself. And the same is
People
true for the
don't see it
arts.
as important.
And you see, that's the thing. The society doesn't value it. From a purely pragmatic standpoint, I can see, and I don't agree with it, but I could see why things would be like theatre and sports and arts would be labelled as frivolous. I could see that a person would do that because there's greater problems. Okay,
Yeah.
but again, people have to have something to live for.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just focus. I mean, like you must address the systemic inequalities and the terrible health conditions that we have in our country. But at the same time, people have to have some hope, something to live for. You have to have
A way to even talk about those things
a way.
anyway.
And I think theatre gives us a unique way to talk about that. So I could see why they would do it, and I don't agree with it. And I think it is underfunded in South Africa. And to see something like the Naledi Awards struggling to find funding, it's very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. But yeah.
Well, that's a very sad note, but
It is a bit of a sad note. But yeah, remember that you have a magical power within each of you. Each of us has a magical power. No, we do. We have the power to imagine a better world. And I think this is perhaps the most important power, is we have the power to affect change in the world. And make it more in line with our amazing imaginings. So when you think of that, if you think of yourself as an agent of change, and I think that's why we're doing this podcast, aren't we, Alistair? Is that we want to kind of extend that a little bit. If you think of yourself as you have the power to affect change, you have the power to imagine what that change will bring about, then you know what? It's actually not as negative as it may be at first glance. And we'll award the people with prizes and recognition. We'll award those who actually reach out and who actually try and affect that change, whether it's through theatre or whatever it is through.
And we'll do it come hell or high water, funding or no funding.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's just a clap on the back. But anyway, yeah. So we're going back down the negative route. So I think we're going to
end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, you can find us at Blended Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes,
everywhere that good podcasts are found. Search for Center Stage and you'll find us there. Thank you so much, audience, for joining us. And
we'll see you in the next one.
Next time. Goodbye.
Bye. King Media Productions Center Stage is a South African film and theatre podcast hosted by Alistair King and Daniels and Peter Bates and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.